Do y'all smell that? Oh, I know what it is. It smells like football's in the air. That's right. Day one of fall camp. Here we are. Exactly 1 month from today, Florida will head to Salt Lake City, Utah to hit the field for part two of the Gators and the Utes. It's coming, and it's coming quickly. I'm ready to rock. Yeah, man. My name is Brandon Carroll, and I'm the host here at Carroll's Cadence. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way now so we don't have to, because we have a packed show for y'all today. Like, subscribe, comment, and just support the channel in any way you can. If you want to comment your most fond Gator memory as a Gators fan. I would love to see what everyone has in the range of which people have been Gator fans in the right spots that there's been in recent memory in recent years or even back in the day. But yeah, comment your favorite memory as a Gator fan and let me know. And I am just gonna say I'm interested in what y'all have to say and truly appreciate everyone's support here at Carroll's Cadence. But I don't want to harp on the intro too long or anything like that because on Sunday, players reported to Gainesville for the beginning of fall camp on Monday. That's right. Football is here. We are ready to rock. The pads are about to get thrown on. And that's why we love this time of year, baby. It is approaching August. We're July 31st. But man, fall is coming, and that means football is coming. Obviously, the quarterback battle is something that is going to be a major, you know, discussion point in the coming weeks. And I discussed that in my first video. That's going to be the main focus for fall camp from the outside looking in. Everyone's going to be looking at, all right, is Graham Mertz going to win the job? How fast is he going to win the job? Like I said in episode 1, I think that he all but has that locked up and it's only a matter of time before he takes the reins there. But it's not the only storyline to watch heading into the near month-long fall camp that we're going to be seeing. It's 21 days before they get into preparation for their August 31st combat with Utah. And they're just ramping up to the regular season with it. That's what fall camp is. You're ramping up to the regular season. You're putting the finishing touches on what you did in the spring and summer, and you're just getting it ready to rock. And I think Florida's going to be ready to rock come week one. And in fact, I don't think that the quarterback battle is even scratching the surface of storylines for Florida because this team has more unknowns than answered at this stage. And I think that as a result, you're going to see a lot of different kind of topics arise throughout fall camp that you haven't even thought of. And I think one of them is going to be a pressing one, and it's in the backbone of the offense. It comes in the form of the big boys up front. Yeah, that's right. The offensive line, the big boys, the trench monsters. There's competition in the trenches. And we love some competition in the trenches. That's because it's not going to get the headlines. It's not going to be the one that is fun. You're not going to get the skill positions and things like that. But I'm telling you, it holds weight, considerable weight, because Florida's looking to replace 4 starters from last season on the offensive line. They have Kingsley Eguakun still at center, but you lost Osiris Torrance, which was inarguably the biggest loss for Florida across the board from last season. You lost Ethan White and Michael Tarquin, and then obviously you lost Richard Garage. And there were some players in that mix that have worked into starting spots that saw time at last season, but you're looking at multiple positions that will be affected from that losing 4 starters. And we're getting into fall camp where there's one starting position to be filled, there's reserve positions to be filled, and I just want to get into what that could look like now until they start prepping for Utah in 21 days. So I think at the top of the list, we're looking at the right tackle competition. The right tackle competition is by far the biggest storyline on the offensive line for Florida right now, and I think it's a 2-man battle. After seeing Keontae Goodwin head out just a few weeks ago because of family issues, it's a 2-man battle. You have FIU transfer Lindell Hudson, and you have Alabama transfer Damian George Jr. And right now, if I were to pick this battle, I would say that Lindell Hudson is going to be the one that triumphs to earn the starting job in week 1. And that's not necessarily a knock on George, but it's more so a praise of Hudson's experience. Because if we know anything about Florida football, what Florida covets from players, it's the same exact situation with the quarterback battle. There's not much that can separate either guy, but experience is what it's going to come down to. And you look at Lindell Hudson, even though he played at FIU, he had 1,564 snaps with the Panthers over the 4 seasons while he was at FIU. So that experience that they covet, it's very similar to what we'll probably see with how Graham Mertz wins the job. But that's not to mention Hudson's a good player. He's a good pass protector. He has above average rush blocking skills. And he can sustain Florida's right side of Florida's O-line, because we all know the strength of this O-line is going to be Austin Barber and Micah Mazuka, I should say, on the left side of the offensive line. You're going to have that strong side over there on the left, because those two are going to be the pillars of this line. Austin Barber obviously showed last year that he can be a bookend offensive tackle, which Florida was yearning for. And now you're getting Micah in the mix, which this is a dude. And I'm going to talk about him in a second, but Micah is a dude. He's going to be a huge asset for Florida as they try to kind of find their way in this retooled offensive line group. But I bet what we see from Florida this year kind of illustrates the fact that they're the two main guys on that left side, because I think if we see a heat map of rushing plays by the season's end, I guarantee you it's going to be red on the left side. I'm not saying it's not going to be on the right side, but the red on the left side will tell the story for how Florida went to attack opposing teams with the rushing game this season. But I think if there is a guy that can support the right side, who can make it serviceable, it's Hudson. And I know, like I said earlier, he only played at FIU. There were some concerns about him making the jump to the SEC. But let me tell you this. In his lone contest against a Power 5 opponent against Texas Tech in 2021, he had something to prove, and he did. And I think a big reason why Florida went in and took him is because they saw him go against Texas Tech, who, might I add, had 2023 NFL draft prospect and eventual number 7 overall pick Tyree Wilson working off the edge when they went and played him in Lubbock. And he didn't allow one sack. He allowed one QB hurry, and he had 26 pass blocking reps. So he was playing against Power 5 opponent. He was, obviously it's not SEC caliber. He was playing against dudes that are still top level athletes. He was playing against a number 7 overall pick. And it's not necessarily saying that Tyree Wilson was in a, huge role, because he kind of rose rather quickly in 2022, but he was still on the field. And an NFL talent doesn't just get to being an NFL talent. That's something that is molded over years, but there are flashes from very early on. And Hudson having that experience, having that production against a team like Texas Tech is massive for what Florida wants to do moving forward. And Hudson could be so big to that puzzle, to be so crucial to that puzzle. And he may not be perfect, but I do think he's going to be more refined and better to assume the spot than George. Because George, you look at him, he only had a handful of snaps at Alabama, did struggle. I think he started in 3 games, allowed 3 sacks over the mix, and it was like against New Mexico State and Auburn and of the sort. So you're just seeing him he'll have to find his way at Florida. He'll have to work into that starting spot. And I just don't think that's coming this year when you have someone like Lindell Hudson as a 1-year transfer sitting on the bench. It just doesn't make too much sense to play a Damian George when you have a guy that you think that, and that's not saying they can't rotate, but I do believe that there is a lot of stock that will go into what Hudson brings from a experience standpoint. And that ultimately opens up George to be that swing tackle piece that Florida so loves. Austin Barber was that last year for Florida, and they love having a guy that can fill in on both sides of the offensive line whenever they need him to. And George can be just that for Florida in 2023. And then there's more competition. It's not just right tackle. Like I said earlier, Florida is more concerned with depth than any team I've seen from, at least watching Florida teams over the past decade plus. The way they're able to incorporate reserves on the offensive line. It's not a known practice. You normally see your 5-set dudes, and when you got your 5-set dudes, you leave them in, you let them rock because that chemistry is so important. But Florida was really good last year at plugging pieces and maintaining success. Plugging pieces, maintaining success. And that's something that when you see what Florida would look to do this year, obviously they did it last year with Austin Barber and Richie Leonard, and now both of those are going to be starters. So they look to build depth in the present to ultimately pass the baton in the future. And it is kind of increased with Micah Mazuka missing some of starting, or not missing, but being limited to start camp as he recovers from a torn labrum he suffered in the spring. So he'll be ready to go, according to Rob Sale on Sunday before the season opener. But there's some competition to at least see from Florida on the interior. And let me just get this out of the way. I don't think there is one fiber of my being that believes that if Micah Mazuka, I don't know why I keep Mazuka. I'm struggling with that name right now. I'm going to get it. I promise. I just keep second guessing myself. We're going to figure it out. Definitely. It's definitely a trips you up because it's spelled much differently than it's pronounced, but he'll be ready to go. But there's not a fiber of my being that believes that if he's not 100% healthy, if he is 100% healthy, there's not a soul that will take his spot. Even if he's not, even if he's 80% healthy, I think he's the starter at right or at left guard, without a doubt, because this is not just any old left guard. He is a guard that Florida brought in with the understanding that he would be the replacement to the consensus All-American that left their program last year in Osiris Torrance. Obviously, it's on the opposite side of the line, but they saw him in the portal and they said, this is the only available guy that we believe can even come close to filling the shoes that Osiris left behind. And Osiris left behind massive shoes. His presence on that right side of the line is going to be sorely missed this year. And we're going to see that very soon, I believe, in this season. And it might not maintain, but the way he was able to just dominate that right side of the line, jumping from Louisiana Lafayette to Florida for that 1 year, was uncanny. And now you're getting Mazuka coming in to fill that void of being just a dominant guard for Florida, dominant interior offensive lineman. And now you see, okay, if he's even relatively close to seeing the field, they're going to play him. And I have no reservations in them doing so because I think he is the truth. Because you don't just bring someone like that in to, let's see what he can do. No, if you have those expectations for him, the ones that you think can even come close to the, like I said, consensus All-American right guard from last year, the guy that's going to be a pillar of the Buffalo Bills offensive line for the next decade plus, you can't leave him off the field. Even if he's 80% healthy, 90% healthy, he's got to play. And they know that. And even with those lofty expectations that they created for him, he impressed in the spring before suffering injury. He showed that he's strong, he's mean, he's about his business, and he's a freaking dog. And that's not even my verbiage this time. That's Rob Sales from his quote in the spring. He said, this man is a freaking dog. But anyways, his showing in the early portion of the spring kind of solidified his spot at left guard when he is healthy. But his absence has also led to competition behind him, and it's allowed a lot of guys to step into the spotlight for, okay, who could potentially go at left guard if he does, suffer a setback or see injury concerns, or just if we need to rotate him and get him out because there's, it's just something going on we need to check. Najee Harris, a freshman, and Jalen Farmer are the two that have really stood out, according to Sale on Sunday morning. They, there were several coaches and players who spoke with media on Sunday morning in preparation for fall camp on Monday. And so those are the two that have really stood out. And I think Farmer personally is a gem on this offensive line that when he gets his spot, when he gets his opportunity, he's going to claim a starting spot, and it's going to be a fun road to watch because Farmer, talking about dudes that are about their business, Farmer is about his business. And then even Harris is about his business. They all are. And I think that's one thing we're seeing with these Florida offensive linemen. We're seeing dudes that are coming in that understand that what their role is, and they're focused in achieving the road. They're focused on taking the path to achieving their goals on that offensive line. And that's what Florida is looking to do this season with getting in those pieces that are, can potentially be moved around. But Harris specifically caught my eye when I heard Rob Sale talk about him, just because he's a freshman. You don't see freshmen a lot of the time, especially on the offensive line, step in and make significant impact. Especially like you'll see like a Will Campbell at LSU every now and then come through, but that hasn't been the case at Florida, especially at the level they've recruited offensive line talent. There haven't been many freshmen that have been able to step in and immediately take over. But IMG Academy prospects are going to be ready to roll when they get to college. That's always the case, and I have no concerns that that's not the case with Najee Harris. But I do think that the interesting thing to me is not only is he ready, but he's ready after making the switch from center to guard from prep to college, because he's playing guard in college. He played center for the Ascenders. So now you're seeing him not only making that switch, but he's on the fast track to seeing a lot of playing time in his Florida career as a result, especially if he can get on the field this season. And Rob Sale said football comes easy to him. He looks like he's been around for 3 or 4 years and he's a freshman. Everybody, it kind of gets them a little bit different. It gets them a little bit different times. Some kind of need more reps. Some kind of need the concept. Okay, I get it. But he's a guy that is a good teammate, good person, obviously a good player. And I think that just understanding football, being able to grasp things quickly can take you so far in the sport. And doing so while making that switch from center to guard and also making the enormous jump from prep to college is going to pay dividends for Najee Harris, because this team's mantra is 5=1. But if you've heard anything that I've said, if you've seen anything that Florida has done over the past few years, or over the past 2 years since Billy Napier arrived, yeah, it's more like 7 or 8=1, because they're going to prepare for the present and future simultaneously. They're going to have the Najee Harrises, the Jalen Farmers, the Jake Slaughters, and last year they're going to have the Austin Barbers and the Richie Leonards ready to step in at any time, so that they can not only have guys that are ready to rock right now, not only have that starting five that is, your core, but have the dudes behind them that are ready to step in at any moment's, notice, and maintain that success. Because maintaining success is the entire premise of having depth. You want no drop off or very little drop off. And if Florida can continue to build that depth on the offensive line, they'll be in a very, very good spot by the time week one, or mid-season rolls around, because obviously you want it for week one, but that's not necessarily a achievable goal. But then when we get into week 4, week 5, if there's opportunity for Florida to have 2 guys ready to rock behind the original starting 5, they are going to be in a great spot, especially as they look to run the football a lot this year. So make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Carroll's Cadence brings you episodes Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays until I deem differently, but that's not going to be stopping. If I deem it differently, that's because I'm adding. I'm going to be rolling with this thing because this train is cooking and I ain't going to slow down. Like I said in episode 1, I feel like Randy Orton the way I'm coming out of nowhere. And that's how I'm feeling, because I'm coming out of nowhere and we're going to make it work. But this train ain't slowing down. Like and subscribe. Join the channel. Join the family. Let's make this thing shake. But behind that wall that we talked about, that wall of offensive linemen, probably going to be 7 or 8 deep, we got a duo of ball carriers that are some dogs. Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. They are the truth. Both of them. They're both the truth. You got Montrell Johnson, more in between the tackles runner, can still bust one when he needs to. Find pay dirt. Don't matter. I can make it happen. Tough yards. Got it. Need one? Need a long one? Got it. Trevor Etienne, he's more of a creative runner, wants to get outside, likes to, kind of play off his elusiveness, has adequate straight line speed, can also break one. So you just have two dudes that are dynamic rushers in your backfield at all times. And then obviously you'll have the rotation of Cam Carroll and potentially Treon Webb as the season moves on. But that duo is something special. And kind of makes you sit back and think with the current state of the running back position. It might be it's a staple of Florida's offense. And we all know that it's going to be a staple of Florida's offense, but that's not the case elsewhere. And I know this show is tailored toward the Gators and Florida football. It's Florida football, basketball, and recruiting. I'm gonna get more basketball in, so I need y'all to buckle in because basketball is where I'll get fired up about basketball. I love football. I love football, but I'll get fired up about some basketball as well. But I know the show is tailored toward Florida, University of Florida, but I want to talk about the current state of the running back position just in general, specifically in the NFL right now, because I think the University of Florida is kind of intertwined within that storyline, namely in the case of Jonathan Taylor, because Jonathan Taylor is a top 5 back in the league who is supposed to be an asset for Florida for former Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson in this upcoming season as he takes this monumental next step of his career, going from a 1-year starter at Florida where he saw just the highest of highs and the lowest of lows to an Indianapolis team that's looking like they're going to start him week 1 against Jacksonville. He's going to play. And now you're saying that his running back that's supposed to be, this just absolutely dominant ball carrier that he can kind of allow him to get out of trouble whenever he needs to as he learns the position and learns to play as a rookie in the NFL isn't going to be there. That's crazy. It's a crap show up there in Indy. And unfortunately, Richardson is going to be the one who is hurt by this kind of struggle for power between Jim Irsay and everyone in Jonathan Taylor's camp. And I understand Taylor's point of view. He's looking to get his second deal. He's proved that he's one of the best back in the leagues throughout his, he's played in the NFL for 3 years now, going into his fourth. He's going into it after this season. It'll be a contract year. And I understand why he's upset. And I just want to get one thing out of the way before we really dive into this conversation is that I do believe that the market for running backs right now is crappy. It's crappy because running backs are crucial for success. They're essential. And I know we'll see the kind of ups and downs of running backs, and you'll see, they're injury prone. You can keep, different guys. You can continue to draft running backs because running backs don't matter. And I think a lot of what the NFL has seen, I feel like they've been on Twitter too much. Get off Twitter. Running backs matter. You had no epiphany. Fantasy football nerds have been saying this for years. Freaking people on Twitter have been saying don't pay running backs for years, and it hasn't happened. But now we want to get into this to where we have an epiphany and say, oh, we don't need to pay running backs. That's asinine. That's an asinine statement. Because I don't want to see the graphic of, oh, look at these running backs in the Super Bowl. These Super Bowl winners have had, below average running backs. No, because all of those guys have been crucial to their team's success. Because it's all fine and dandy during the regular season to just air it out and have a passing attack. But if you don't have a ability to run the football in the playoffs, you're not going anywhere. You're not winning anything. It's like the Buffalo Bills. Dynamic passing attack, fun passing attack. It's great to watch. It's electric. Recipe for success in the regular season. They get into the playoffs multiple years in a row now, and they've stalled out because they don't have an ability to run between the tackles. Can't control the clock. Can't pound the rock. Got to control the clock and pound the rock in the playoffs, boys. Got to. Because if not, good luck, Bubba. You're going to be watching the Super Bowl, the big game from Cancun. I'm telling you. Got to be able to run the rock. And last year, Kansas City, They had Isaiah Pacheco. It's all about guys that step up late. If you can step up late, you have a spot in the NFL. Pacheco is going to have a spot because he was able to step up late. But that running back position is important. Might not matter who's there in terms of which guy it is at that point, but you're going to need them come playoff time. And if you have a team that can get to the playoffs, why not have one of the best? Why not put yourself in a position where you don't have to worry about a guy stepping up because you know you got a 1,000-yard rusher behind you? You have a Jonathan Taylor. You have a Derrick Henry. But you got to be multifaceted. And so you have a situation now where Taylor, who's integral to this Colts team, especially for Anthony Richardson's development, in my opinion, who's been isolated from this franchise after his agent accused the franchise of working toward a deal in bad faith. And then when that's called out, he gets publicly ostracized by the owner of the Colts on social media. That's burning a bridge. You're going to need this guy. He's not going anywhere. You're not trading him. Good luck trading him, especially in this market, this unfair market for running backs. But now Anthony Richardson's the one that's going to be hurt. He has Michael Pittman Jr. He has Josh Downs. That's great. Anthony Richardson's ridiculously talented. But this is a problem. After seeing what I did last year, seeing every snap from Florida, from in this Gators team, and most of which I saw more than once because I rewatched the games and had time to kind of break down what Florida was doing. I do not want to see him on that field without every single weapon that they could possibly have at his disposal. If I'm Indy, I don't want that. Why would you want that? Why would you want your rookie quarterback having to figure it out by himself instead of having what was a very talented core of players around him? Especially the one that's a two-time 1,000-yard rusher with 33 career touchdowns in 3 seasons. He's a bowling ball running downhill. He has agility in space, and he's an elite back. He's supported Indy's pathetic offense for the past few seasons because they've refused to kind of go all in on a quarterback like they did this year. Instead, they were trying to kind of plug in some washed passers. Sorry, Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. I'm sure you knew, right? I feel like they had to have known because if they didn't, there's a reason Indy's been mid. There's a reason they've been mid. And they're going to continue that trend even though they have the pieces to not be that anymore, especially in the future. But Anthony Richardson's still raw. He's still raw talent. And limiting him to who he's able to kind of fall on or lean on is a disservice to him. I don't care about the impressions he's making in camp. I hope he succeeds. And I think he will, but you have to give him the opportunity to do so with every single piece at his disposal. It's a team effort. And the way they've handled this situation is malpractice. It's the only way to describe it. It's malpractice for Anthony Richardson. And he's having to shoulder what could be the passing and rushing game right now because he can run the football. He can pass the football. But do you really want him doing both, having to be the key piece in both? I don't. I wouldn't. I would not at all. And I think this situation goes beyond the former face of the Florida franchise. Because if you're looking at this market, looking at how running backs are having to create a summit before the beginning of the season and discuss the current situation or current landscape of this running back market just weeks before the preseason kicks off, that's a concern. And Florida has 2 NFL caliber running backs on their roster right now. 2 guys that are going to be entering this situation here in the next few years and could potentially be looking for a second contract. It's a second contract in the next 7. And they'll be toting the rock in the pros in 3 years' time, both of them, because they're both talented. But it's just not a good time to be a running back. It's not a good time for these guys, and it's a shame. It's really a shame because Running backs deserve more. They do. And Trevor's brother, Travis Etienne, former Clemson running back, current Jacksonville Jaguars running back, spoke on this manner on Saturday. And he kind of named versatility as the medium to kind of adapting and earning what you deserve in this running back market. And he said, you have to diversify your game. You can't just be a downhill bruiser. We have to continue to evolve and grow our game. And I think that's huge in what Florida or in what running backs need to do. I think that's a very specific part of how the NFL's grown because it's a passing league now, and it has been a passing league, and it's going to continue to be a passing league until a team finds that everyone's trying to defend against the pass, and then it reverts back into a rushing league because it's a cycle. Everything's a cycle. But you're looking at this landscape. You got to be able to do both. And I think both Florida running backs can do both. We don't see much because Florida's offense is not really reliant on using the running back in the passing game, but I do think that they can do both, and that's something that you're going to see a lot more of for in the next few years, and we're already seeing a lot of is guys making their way into the NFL having to have all the skill sets. They have to be able to pass catch out of the backfield, have to be able to pass protect. That's a huge one. Have to be able to run the rock between the tackles, outside of the tackles. Their job is going to become so multifaceted that it's going to be, and they're still going to get underpaid for it because it's a running back. We can just get another one of you in a few years. And it's kind of the way of the road moving forward. But I do think that they need to kind of put themselves in position to succeed right now. But I'm hoping that we can find a happy medium as a just football community for these running backs because, man, they're so important. The position itself is so important, and I think that just in my opinion, having the top guys on your side is a luxury that you can afford to pay because the market will never be as high as some of the other positions, but it just deserves to be higher than what it is right now. And this just could be the way of the road for running backs moving forward, which is a sad reality. But I do think that they should, kind of. I'm hoping they can warrant the respect they deserve. Kind of draw that in the next few years, and I think this Jonathan Taylor situation could be what does that for the next generation of ball carriers. Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, and not to mention he could find a way to get back in there and aid Anthony Richardson as he makes his next step of his career. But the position's in murky waters right now, and I'm not sure when that's going to change. I'm not sure when it's going to. But anyways, thank you for listening to another episode of Carroll's Cadence. Make sure to like and subscribe before you get out of here. And I'll just leave y'all with this. This train's moving, baby. We're going to keep on going. I appreciate everybody. Carroll's Cadence, Brandon Carroll. I'm out.